hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.
Welcome again to Street Talk. My name is Ahmad Shakaraki, and on Street Talk, what we do, we talk about the political, social, and economics here in Michigan, the U.S., and abroad. Now, joining me tonight is Brother Rory, Brother Dennis, and Brother
Baba Kubwa.
Baba Kubwa.
You got 2 out of 3 this time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about how this thing got started though in Dallas. What was happening around the country when the shooting really started, when the policeman got killed? Because they were showing all around the country where people was, were just marching and everything.
Demonstrating peacefully.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the ironic thing is it happened in Dallas.
Right.
Because Dallas has a truly progressive police department.
Yep.
Where they do community outreach, they engage with the citizenry. Mm-hmm. They were down there with not wearing white gear, interacting with the black
giving water, food,
yes.
taking selfies with the protesters, and everything.
Which is another reason why I think it's a false flag, but that's not what we're talking about tonight. But you got departments around the country where if this was deserving, and I'm not saying it was, but if you were going to choose a target, brother, you could go to Philadelphia,
Chicago.
You could go to Chicago. You could go to St. Louis 2 or 3 times.
Thank you.
You could go to L.A. I mean, there's all kind of cities around Houston, right up the road.
Right up the road.
You got police departments around the country that are notorious for their abuse and disrespect of the black community. For it to happen in Dallas, really to me, was ironic and inappropriate. Just if you had a tactical or political or an ideological statement to make.
I'm glad you said that.
But those cats didn't deserve that.
No, I'm glad you said that.
Go ahead. We was talking about it.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. Dallas has become the national model for community policing and
Will it continue?
law enforcement. That's the question now. All I know is that Saturday morning, many of those same policemen that were out there Friday night were out there giving water to the protesters. The protesters for that morning, focus had changed from demonstrating against the shootings to empathizing with what had happened the night before. These officers, and they've got all kinds of personal statements, were out protecting citizens, sheltering with their bodies, pulling them out of danger while under fire. And one of the things that I hope I'm not too far off, President Obama talked about even before his election, talking about this is one America. To be an American, it's an idea. If you see someone that's of Chinese descent, they have a certain phenotype, they look a certain way, and I can go down the list from any part of the world. But when you say he's an American, describe what an American looks like, even by our names. If someone is named Wong, maybe Asian, Chinese. Someone's name is Francois, you got an idea. Someone's name Jose, I could go down the list. You guys get the picture. Yeah. But if I say, hey, what's his name? Willie Davis. What did you just tell me about that person? Nothing. You know, wasn't it Rory McNeil? Oh, he might be Scottish. That's a Scottish name, Irish Scottish name. No, he's a black guy that grew up on the south side of Chicago, 65 years old. Being an American is an idea of values that we accept. We're the first country, and maybe still the only of a very few. We don't pledge allegiance to the crown. We don't pledge allegiance to the land. We don't pledge allegiance or take an oath to the flag. We take an oath to defend and protect the Constitution. These set of laws that if you are born here by the set of laws, or if you become a naturalized citizen, you take an oath to this statement of laws. We're the only country in the world that does that.
That protects the rights you were born with.
Not
bestowed upon you.
And the rights that you were born with and are entitled to under our Constitution by being a citizen or even a visitor. Remember, all visitors are accorded the same rights of the Constitution. That's the big thing about the quote-unquote terrorists in Guantanamo Bay. But the fact of being American is an idea. If I, like I said earlier, if I go through all of these ethnic groups and ask you what did they look like, you could give me a physical description.
No, their phenotype.
Of their phenotype, what they look like on the outside, except an American. It's an idea, and some people just don't get it.
Well, the idea of what an American is will be, that question will be answered by the recipient of the question, for example.
I agree.
If you ask a Donald Trump supporter,
Yep.
what's an American?
Yep.
He's gonna say,
Well, fella, let me tell you.
yeah, it's gonna be a white dude.
Yeah.
Let's be honest about it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a white dude who's got his woman at home making dinner, knows her place, and the rest of y'all, you just and in fact, there was a very interesting article in the New York Times just last week that talked about the impetus for the Second Amendment.
Okay.
The impetus wasn't that everyone should have the right to bear arms and protect themselves, and the idea was that you had these what they called savages out here in the wilderness.
Whose land we were stealing.
Exactly, and you had these blacks who were
Savages.
who were uncontrollable.
Yeah,
because you had a lot of insurrection back then.
Sure did.
So they said we need this Second Amendment to protect ourselves against these specific threats.
Yep.
It had nothing to do with the individual right, and it also mandated you need to be regulated under militia.
Right.
First of
now,
all, let me, because what you just said is so important. It's the key to the Second Amendment. A well-regulated,
Yep.
of course,
militia.
Yeah.
And Rory, what gets me is
I didn't mean to interrupt
you
you,
could
but
go all the way up until
right.
the 1960s, and that was the interpretation
That's right.
and the
That's
law
right.
of the
Yeah.
Second Amendment. You don't have a right to walk around with a gun just because you want to.
Right.
And
You have a right to organize a militia and be.
But you got one. The sheriff, the
But
city
that was all
police,
changed.
state
That was
police.
all
And-
changed because of politics. We want you to have that gun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Well,
and going back to you had mentioned first about, I think you were referring to Black Lives Matter and how all of this began, and the right to assemble to
Peaceably.
redress grievances is where Black Lives Matters is. And if you look at the cutting edge of issues, not only dealing with race but dealing with class, it has traditionally been black folks organizing over these issues that tend to galvanize
Yeah, because they affected us most. You're right.
the discussion and the move toward that. And that's what Black Lives Matters really is really, again, blacks have come forward because in many cases we're the recipients of so much dastardly things, are bringing the issues back to justice, bringing the issues back to fairness. In fact, you can look at the Black Lives Matter as the real, true Americans. Because
I agree with that.
I mean, they are really what we need to label as the real, true Americans
Patriotic.
who are pulling.
No, that's right, Doc.
And bringing the issues to bear that we need to discuss. And historically, it has been black folks.
well, the last couple of days, I haven't watched TV today, but just say Friday and Saturday,
Sunday.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I seen more than one person you know, 2 or 3 different people on different channels speaking, they were saying that they were some of the reason.
Absolutely.
Some of the
Yep.
reason this guy went off in Dallas and killed.
Giuliani.
He was not an advocate. of the black-
Giuliani.
Well, no, the Giuliani. That's
I know, but he was one of the main. Go
But
ahead.
but the shooter himself was a critic of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
He thought that they were ineffective and that they were going about their tactics were wrong. So let's put that on the table. But
Good. I'm
but
glad
the
you
Black
did that.
Lives Matter movement itself is the prototype of what it means to be an American when you can petition your government
Yep.
for redress, peaceably
Peaceably.
assembly,
Yeah.
and
right.
ask for recognition.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, then don't come to me talking about the Constitution.
Exactly.
I've had this very same argument with a couple of
agree.
right wingers. I said, man, don't come to me talking about patriotism and America and the Constitution. You can't even read Dick and Jane, and you talking about the Constitution?
Right.
And you have a problem with people organizing and petitioning their government for redress?
Peacefully.
Why don't you go someplace where there's a totalitarian government, you'll be more at home? Because, not to take this too far afield, if you look at the data, most of the Republican Party's base is high school educated men who have a predilection for authoritarianism. They prefer that to a free interchange of
Not
ideas
only that.
where people can discuss and come
Can
to
I
an
say this real
agreement.
quick,
No,
Doc?
no, I'm through.
I'll be real quick. No, you ain't through.
I
But yeah, I know.
mean, the point that I made, I'm
Uh,
trying to-
The Republican presumptive nominee, they have conventions until next week where he becomes the nominee officially, has expressed his envy for Saddam Hussein,
Yes.
for Vladimir Putin,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
for Young Jong-il
Yeah.
II
Yes.
from North
Yeah.
Korea, all
Yeah.
despots, all dictators, all guilty of crime,
Authoritarianism.
authoritarian figures guilty of crimes against humanity. Now, there's an old saying, if you allow yourself to listen closely enough, someone will tell you who they really are if you just listen.
Yeah.
And he's saying, I'm this man.
Yeah.
I'm Mussolini. He was quoted as he quoted Mussolini, and somebody says, "Is Mussolini somebody you want to be quoted?" Oh, I just like what he said. I like what he did. Same thing with the other despots
Yep.
I just mentioned with crimes against humanity. And you're right. Both of you are all 3 of y'all are 100% right. The nation, there's a large segment of this population make America great again.
Yeah.
And I keep going back to that because that word again, at the end of that statement, when are we talking about, like I say, Jim Crow, slavery, women couldn't
Yeah.
vote, inequity across the board, separate but equal,
The genocide of the Native Americans.
genocide of Native Americans.
yeah.
Thank you for throwing that in there.
You can go down the line.
Yeah. What does again mean? And we've got 45% of the voting electorate saying that we like this guy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You know
yeah.
what when they say the code word for when America was great again, when people in the world were afraid of America.
That's one of them, sure is.
That's what they
Yep.
mean.
That's one of the
That-
things
that's
they mean.
what they mean.
That's
Because,
one of the
because they
things they mean.
cannot. When you ask those questions, when could they say America was great?
No, I agree.
Except for when they were feared.
Military
The only
development.
time
that's right.
America first became a military power in 1945 when they dropped the atomic bomb, 2 of them on Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Before then, America was just an industrial nation, just an agricultural nation.
Didn't have a standing army.
Did
Didn't have a
not
standing
have
army.
a standing army.
Yeah.
After World War II, that's when that fear came in. So I take what you said, which is valid, and then I go back to 250 years before then when you couldn't walk down the street, when you couldn't go get a mortgage, when you could get fired and couldn't have a job, you could be whooped, your wife could be raped in front of you, your daughter taken from you, son killed.
Yeah.
You know,
And you had no rights.
and you had no right. So I take what you said. First of all, the world didn't start fearing America till 19.
As the American approach
Well,
to these issues.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said, but I think there's a distinction to be drawn between what most Americans experience numerically and what the minority experiences. And that's where Black Lives Matter came up with this saying our lives matter. We should not be subjected to arbitrary and capricious behavior from police officers who feel they have the right to kill us anytime they want to. We are not.
With impunity.
Yeah, we are not any different than anybody else. So anytime I hear, and I've heard it a million times, I've had these arguments with Europeans personally, face to face. Well, all lives matter. Of course, all lives matter. But see, let's put it this way. And I didn't get this originally. This came from a brother named Twal Khalib, who's a hip hop MC. He said, the reason why Black Lives Matter needs to use those words is our house is on fire. We getting fired on by the police with impunity, killing us for spurious reasons anytime they want to. Black Lives Matter because our house is on fire. Of course, your house is not on fire. Nobody's going around shooting you at
Yeah, I don't
traffic
need to
stops.
stand there with water bullets.
Right.
Your house ain't fire, and my house on fire
So
next door.
we
Yeah.
know your life matters because
I
it's
like that,
manifested
I
in the
like
way
that, I
the
like
police
that.
regard you, in the
Yeah,
way
yeah.
the society treats you. But we don't seem to be given that same courtesy. So we've got to point out to you how valuable you may not place any value on my life. But I damn sure place a lot of value on my life and on my children's lives
That's
and on
right.
my family and my friends' life.
That's right.
And if I've got to die to protect them, I will.
And still, and I say this, and I still think that white people do not think that we, and I'm not saying every white person doesn't, I don't think that black people still think that white people think we're human.
Well, let me.
I really don't. I really don't. I
agree
think
with
you
you.
have to try to convince them that we are, but I think the way the culture is set up is still, the thought is still chattel.
That's why it's so
still
important.
chattel.
That's why it's so important that we learn our history and convey it to our children. Because if they're under the misimpression that they are the ones who discovered mathematics, that they are the ones who discovered architecture, that they are the ones who first wrote music, that they're the ones, that all the fine points of civilization all came out of Europe. And they'll tell you that in their school.
Yeah.
And you can present them with data that's written in stone. You can still see the pyramids and show them, no, you didn't discover pi. Africans discovered pi. The Pythagoras theorem wasn't created by some
Pythagorean
Greek
cat.
named Pythagoras.
Right.
He went to Kemet and studied for 22 years
Sure
under
did.
black Africans.
Sure
So
did.
if we
Oh, the Greeks will tell you in their writings
that they
They
learned
they
at
had
the
to go
They
to
will.
Egypt and Ethiopia
To learn.
and northern Nubia
Yes.
to study for a minimum of 5 years before they can come. And this is in there right, Aristotle.
And it was a prestige thing.
Yeah.
It was a prestige.
That's right.
So my point, Rory, is unless and until we convey that message to
Agreed.
our own people,
That's right.
and for matters of self-esteem and pride,
And that's truth. Just a matter
then
of
they
truth.
won't. Because if white folks think, look, you was in the jungle, you was over there beating on bongos or bones,
Eating
and your noses
people.
eating each other in
Yeah.
pots. They literally think that.
Yeah.
So if they think
We
that's
do.
what we are, if we can't disabuse them of their notion, fine. I told, Miles heard me tell him, I don't care what you think or believe. I'm talking to my brother.
Right.
I want him to know. I want my daughter to know.
Right.
I want people to know. No, we don't come from the jungle. We don't come from a civilization with a bone in our nose. We had such a
Timbuktu.
high level of civilization that it's never been equaled. Where we stand today is in the shadows of a greater civilization.
In the
America's the
ruins.
greatest country in the history of the world. Really?
Let alone the shadows, Dennis, in the ruins. Everything you just said is true. Timbuktu, Mansa Musa, you talk about it in your classes a lot, Doc.
Songhai
The three
dynasty.
Songhai, Mali, Ghana, were the center of commerce and education, medicine in the world. People traveled. A lot of people, if you have one at home, go look at a map and see how close Spain, Italy, particularly Sicily, France, Greece is to Africa. And some points it's less than 200 miles from the North Shore of Africa. Well, everyone knows, not everyone, a lot of people know the story of Carthage and Hannibal and the Great War, the Carthaginian War stuff. But
And that's
they are-
that's relatively recent.
that's relatively
Right,
recent.
right.
The Moors occupied Spain and southern Italy, including Sicily, for
800 years.
800 years.
From
Introduced
711
lot-
to 1492.
Yeah. Introduced universities, hospitals, bathing facilities, the entire aqueduct system, irrigation system,
lighted streets,
lighting
boulevards.
streets, boulevards,
Universities,
theaters,
yes.
art, culture, sewage system, which was part of the aqueduct, to bring in fresh water and take out the sewage away from the cities, which eliminated tons and tons of disease and stuff. Matter of fact, at one time it was a crime in European society to take a bath more than once a month. And then when the Moors came and said, no, we got to change this, y'all. You know, there was all kinds. I don't want to get into this.
Well, look at this. The Italian clothing.
Yeah.
The height of sophistication.
Yeah.
Where they make gaiters.
Yeah.
Ain't no alligators.
Ain't
in
no
Italy.
alligators in Italy.
The Moors taught them how to do that.
Yeah.
The same thing with multi-story homes.
The linen, the
Moors
silk,
did.
yeah, sure,
Yes.
sure it
so,
did.
so look,
Language. We have
language, astrology, yeah.
alphabets.
Yeah.
The understanding
The
of
Arabic numerals.
the Dogon.
Yeah.
So my point is,
The Dogon, the astrology, yeah.
we don't need to convince anybody about our greatness. We need to remember our greatness.
That's right.
We need to Sankofa, go back to who we are, and teach our children who we are, and it'll manifest it in our daily lives.
I agree.
We don't have to
I
convince
agree.
them because they know. I guarantee.
The ones that know.
Yes, I guarantee. I think I told all you cats there. I was a good student in college. I was a history poli-sci major, and my ignorant butt graduated, not realizing that the Moors are black men.
Yeah. Oh,
Knew
really?
all about Yes, I knew all about the Moors up and down. Never occurred to me to ask.
That the word
Wait a
Moor,
minute,
that's what the
wait a
word
minute.
Moor means.
Yeah,
Yes.
but
Well,
they don't
that's
teach
not
it.
the
They didn't
context who's
teach
talking
it.
about.
I know.
Hannibal. Okay, now Hannibal was black, but his army. Wait a minute. Now they came out of Africa. He was black. That's how brainwashed I. Because I was raised on Tarzan.
Yep.
I was raised on white Jesus.
Look at Casablanca.
I was raised
Nobody
on the
knew
Bible.
that Casablanca
Was in Africa. In Africa.
You never would have
Tanzania.
thought that. Yeah, you never would have thought that.
So I guess
yeah.
my overriding point is when we remember who we are and teach each other and our children, we won't
I
have
agree.
to worry about the Darren Wilsons.
But what's happening?
and these cops rolling up on our children, treating them that way, because they're going to have a higher level of humanity, and they won't be susceptible.
And
to
what's
that type of thing.
happening is trying to look at similarities. When we, even in the Christian philosophy, there's this talk of not believing in ancestor worship, which Africans do. But wait a minute, when you say Jacob begat
Yes.
John, that's the same thing.
In Genesis and
right.
Exodus, that's all
once
that
we
is.
begin to pull together that many of the thoughts that even people think today are those thoughts is there, and we have to educate them too. We educate ourselves and we educate them at the same time. But I think we need a thrust also. I think
They
toward
won't. They don't want to
educating
learn
them.
it. Will.
Think
But
about
you
what
still
Doc
give it. But you still give
think
it to
about
them.
what Doc
Still
just said.
give it to them.
No,
Still
think
give it
about
to
what
them.
Doc just said. Doc just said it's already there. Hebrewism, Judaism comes out of Africa.
Of course.
Ancestor worship. It's all in the old book, Old Testament, the Torah, so on and so forth. God saw Abraham, Saul, David, Abraham, and all the way through, Noah, and all the way through. But what they did, they said, we're going to take this out of Africa. We're going to call this something else. So it's not African.
Right.
All of that, we know about the Coptic religion. We know about the Conference of Nicaea through Constantinople when he called all of the bishops and the cardinals together. Over half of them from Africa. That's where the religion was. So what they had to do, and it was around 1880, 85, something like that, they just whitewashed history. And who was complaining? To the victor go the spoils. I get to write. You get to write his story.
Yeah,
His story.
His story.
That's what history means. His story. To the victor
Goes the
goes the
spoils.
spoils,
Yep.
and to the defeated, the vanquished.
Yep.
And so all of these, I didn't mean to go, but yeah, all of these stories that you talked about, Doc, just talked about, are based in Africa. How is Mesopotamia the cradle of civilization when they had been building pyramids for 10,000 years?
Oh, at least.
Yeah, at least.
At least. Yeah.
At the least.
I say it goes back.
How
much
can
further.
we
it
say
does.
Cleopatra looked like Elizabeth Taylor when they got their own paintings? Looked like you just painted your house yesterday. They're so bright and vibrant and stuff. They painted themselves how they looked. And we've seen them in the books. They're black folks.
Okay, man, we got about a minute and 45 seconds. Give us a thought to go some more
My,
weeks and
my
months
biggest thought is that since we're bringing back the link with people with religion and stuff to Africa, the other thing that we really need to do, we need to deal with black women. And restore black women to their place in our history.
Our history.
And contemporarily, because they now, in my mind, is the new thrust toward normalcy. Because even in race, black men seem to get more credit. When it's gender, white women get more credit. The black woman is still put at the bottom, and so until we bring them back, the mother of civilization, back to her rightful role, that's where our thrust is.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I tell people, Sankofa, return to who you are. We know that Christianity, that the Islamic faith, that the Hebrew faith, all came out of the Meta Netter, came out of the black spiritual writings and teachings. So learn who you are, and everything else will take care of itself.
One thing, in light of all the events that happen, whether it's from Dallas or the constant continuation of black people being gunned down on the streets by law enforcement officers, there's a difference. Black on black crime, that's citizen on citizen crime. But when you have government, because that's who the police are agents of the government killing black people, that is the difference. The people that we've entrusted with our safety and security of our families, our lives. So we need to separate those two, because that's one of the things they throw up. It's different, a citizen robbing or committing a criminal act against another citizen. But when the government commits these criminal acts against us, it's time to take in consideration the steps necessary. Black Lives Matter is one of them, and many of the others we've talked about.
We could go on, but right now we'll rest a moment. My name is Ahmad Shakaraki, and we catch it down in the next block. Peace.
That was wonderful.
Yeah. I'm glad.
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.